especially in Western society, we've sort of, I feel, been raised to have the American dream, right? The big fancy house, the big fancy
Mm-hmm.
car, and that if we have all of these things, we will achieve total happiness. But what yoga and the chakra system teaches us is that by having fully balanced chakras, that's really the most ultimate way to achieve total and free liberation and happiness, especially mentally.
Hello and welcome to the Wellness Plus podcast. I'm your host, Corrina Rachel, and I'm joined today by Sheena Sharma. We're going to be talking about the chakra systems and how we can help to bring more balance to the chakras to help us deal with life's hardships a little bit more easily. Sheena, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Karina.
So can you go ahead and just give us a little, description of what it means when we hear people talk about the chakras?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are 7 major chakras in the body, and chakra is just another word term for energy center. And those energy centers run from the tip of the tailbone or the base of the spine all the way up to the very tippy top crown of our head. And so each chakra is meant to represent a different purpose and also a different time period or developmental stage in our early life, adolescence, all the way up to our current life and adulthood. And by balancing the different energy centers or chakras in the body, we can begin to find happiness and mental peace as well as clarity, both on the yoga mat and off.
So what are some of the things that maybe contribute to people's chakras coming out of balance?
Yeah, so being imbalanced in one or more than one chakras goes all the way back to your developmental stages, beginning from even when you were in the womb. So, for example, if you are imbalanced in your sacral chakra, which is the chakra at the base of our spine, then you may have not given enough attention to this particular energy center from the ages of 0 all the way up to 14 months. So either you or your parents were not giving attention to something that was developing in the body, both energetically at this area in your body, but also mentally, emotionally, and intellectually. Someone who is imbalanced in their sacral chakra might have issues with feeling grounded. So, sacral chakra is our root chakra. And our root chakra gives us the foundation for life. It also represents the foundation of life off the mat as well. So, when you are a baby and you are developing, you should be receiving lots of attention, care, and love from your parents. And that will translate to your adulthood as being a grounded adult, being someone who is maybe not very materialistic, who has lots of energy, who's not super greedy. However, if you were not given that care, attention, and love from the ages of 0 to about 2, then you may be experiencing some materialism or need for outer pleasures, not ever feeling satiated within yourself, maybe a feeling of ungroundedness or just general airiness in your head. So, this is one way that being imbalanced in a chakra can affect your day to day life.
Mm-hmm. But are there things that we can do in our adulthood to help bring a little more balance to those areas that maybe even in our childhood or in our infanthood, our infancy, that seems so long ago and far away, but are there things that we can do in our adulthood to help with that balance?
Absolutely. So, the good news is what I always tell people is we're all raised a different way, but we don't have to stay that way. We always have the
Mm.
power to change the things that are giving us a hard time in life, that may be giving us difficulty in relationships, or that make us feel stuck in our career. All of these issues draw back to the chakras, and there are ways to balance these imbalances. So, for example, if you are having trouble with your muladhara, your root chakra, one way to balance that root chakra is to ask yourself the question, what are things in my life that make me feel grounded? And by
Mm.
knowing those things, those anchors, how can you pay more attention to those things? So if it's staying off the computer more, or surrounding yourself with family and friends more, or something like implementing a yoga practice or meditation practice into your life. By doing these things and grounding yourself more, you will feel less materialistic, less greedy, more energetic, and therefore have a more balanced root chakra.
Wow. So, I mean, you keep kind of coming back to this idea of materialism and how a lot of times what we maybe have our sights on in life, oftentimes these kind of material things that are supposed to bring us joy, or having a fancy car or fancy this, but it doesn't actually reach down and truly make us happy.
Mhm.
So I guess you just talk a little bit more about that, how this, I guess, materialism sort of, it kind of feels like it's trying to fill in something that's lacking, but then when we actually are living our lives to just have these material possessions, how that affects us.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in Western society, we've sort of, I feel, been raised to have the American dream, right? The big fancy house, the big fancy
Mhm.
car, and that if we have all of these things, we will achieve total happiness. But what yoga and the chakra system teaches us is that by having fully balanced chakras, that's really the most ultimate way to achieve total and free liberation and happiness, especially mentally, by turning inwards. So, by giving more attention to our thoughts and our feelings, as well as our intuition, we're able to understand what truly makes us happy. And we
Mm.
actually begin to turn away from those materialistic things. Yoga in itself is a very grounding practice. And there are certain postures that you can take depending on the chakra that you would like to balance more, to give yourself that ultimate pleasure and satisfaction in that particular area of your life, that's actually not going to make you reach for more things to buy, but
Mhm.
instead alter the state of the things within you or even around you that are giving you dissatisfaction right now. I did cite some of them earlier, but for example, maybe your relationship with your spouse could be made better, or maybe your relationship with some of your family members is not fulfilling you in the way that it could be. Maybe even your relationship with yourself is suffering. And because
Mm.
of that, you keep wanting to go, impulse shopping or online shopping, or buy a fancy car because you think it'll make you feel better. But by repairing that relationship with ourself and by truly listening to what is told to us through our yoga practice and meditative practice, we're able to achieve that inner peace regardless of what we have.
Mhm. And I think anyone can understand how having your happiness not be rooted in the material possessions is a really good idea, because there's nothing for sure about the material possessions, and there's always um something higher or something better to go. So even once you do splurge and get that fancy car that you really thought was going to be like the end all be all, within a month or two, maybe less than that, there's already a new fancy car. Your friend gets a new fancier car. So
Mhm.
having this, whether it's your happiness or your self worth kind of vested in physical objects and material objects, is really, at least for me, something that I've learned not a good way to go about things. And I think most people have had at least one, if not several, experiences in their life where they kind of
Mhm.
realize that, oh, yeah, you know what, this is not a for sure way to have happiness. And you're always going to be looking towards the next thing. So it kind of goes against that idea of finding contentment with what you have, or being able to find your happiness with as much or as little as you might have in your material life.
Yes, exactly. And that's not to say that we can't look outside of ourselves for happiness. But like you said, I think that, and it's true that actually the things that make us happiest and that yoga teaches us is connecting with the natural world instead. So, another easy way to balance your chakras is actually to get out in nature. to get as much sunlight as you can, your vitamin D, those natural boosts that are actually going to signal to your brain that you're safe and that you're connected to something bigger than yourself that is not going to go away no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
So, nature, connecting with the earth, whether it's planting or gardening, whether it's hiking. I love to hike with my dog, connecting with animals, even. So,
Mm-hmm.
going to an animal shelter or feeding horses. These things are really the things that bring us back to who we were before the material possessions were
Mm-hmm.
even made, and that genuinely make us happy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've talked a lot about root chakra. What
Yes.
is the next chakra?
Yes. So after the root chakra, we head to the sacral chakra. I'm pointing on my own body here, but the sacral chakra that starts from down here and then all the way up. So the sacral chakra is located right between the hips or the genitals for either man or woman. And so the sacral chakra represents pleasure. It is the ultimate pleasure center of our body. And if our sacral chakra is balanced, then we have a healthy relationship with pleasure. And that pleasure can manifest in any way. So, whether it's sexual pleasure, sensual pleasure, pleasure through the senses, seeing things, hearing things that you like. However, if it's imbalanced, then you may associate pleasure with too much pleasure or too little pleasure. So, if you have issues balancing your sacral chakra, you might not have a lot of fun in your life. You might feel like your life is very regimented and you might not give yourself time or effort to allow pleasure into your life. On the other hand, you might be an extremist who maybe struggles with sexual addiction or addiction to things that give pleasure in big ways or more ways than we are stimulated to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
So, an easy way to balance your sacral chakra is to tell yourself that you are deserving of pleasure and to explore in a way that feels good for you. And yoga in the physical form is one of the easiest ways to tap into your sacral chakra because it feels really good.
Mm-hmm.
So, yoga poses that specifically center around the hips, like malasana, yogi squat, even child's pose, a wide legged child's pose, is really going to help to bring that flow of energy to the sacral chakra and balance it.
So, when you were talking about our relationship with pleasure in our
Mhm.
lives, one of the big things, I'm just kind of curious if this would count in that, is our relationship with food.
Mm.
So many times over and over again, there's just kind of this, whether somebody is, addicted to sugar or, addicted to certain foods, or maybe it's just that a lot of us kind of have emotional eating patterns.
Mhm.
When we're really stressed out, we're going to gear towards comfort foods or sweet foods. So I wonder if balancing the sacral chakra could maybe even help us to have healthier relationships with our eating patterns.
Absolutely, Karina. I'm so glad you brought that up. So, sacral actually in Sanskrit, it means sweetness. It literally means sweetness. So, people who struggle with imbalance can have overindulgence in whichever way it manifests for them.
Mm.
And that can mean eating too much, maybe to repress certain emotions, or of course, maybe eating too little, depriving yourself of nutrients
Mm.
that are good for your body and struggling with any kind of eating disorder or body dysmorphia. So, people who eat too much or too little to kind of maybe repress something or not feel
Mm.
something definitely have an imbalance in their sacral chakra. And one question that would be really helpful to them would be, what is making me reach for the sugar in the first place? Or what feeling or experience am I trying to numb or put out of my memory to reach for that thing in
Mm.
the first place?
Mhm. And sometimes it can be really difficult to find that answer, to know
Absolutely.
what is the real motivation. And so many times, I think, we kind of talked about this in the interview we did for our patrons, just about how yoga helps us discover so much about ourselves and kind of maybe deepen the relationship with ourselves in a way that we start to maybe discover those types of things. So if you were to maybe like meditate on that type of question
Mhm.
and just have that thought that you return to maybe once a day or a few times a day. And over the course of a few days or weeks, maybe that answer kind of reveals itself to you. And I think that that's something that is a really great gift that we receive from our yoga practice or our
Mhm.
meditation practice, that suddenly sometimes it just feels like you have this moment of clarity
Mhm.
in understanding something. So I just love to kind of include that there, because a lot of times it feels like, oh, well, what if I don't know what it is that's making me reach for the sugar or making me feel addicted to this certain food.
Mhm.
So letting that, it kind of maybe even comes back to what we were talking about in the root chakra, that our ability to kind of connect with ourselves and be
Mhm.
able to hear the voice in our mind and be able to feel a little bit more connected with ourselves and in control of ourselves, that all of these things kind of can start to fall into place when we make a little time for our practice.
Yes, absolutely. And exactly what you said, it's that yoga teaches us mindfulness. So if you're able to translate that mindfulness from on the mat to off the mat and begin to incorporate mindful eating into your just daily routine, it may help to also ask yourself, when am I reaching for those foods? Maybe it's after a long day of work, or maybe it's when you're feeling tired. So to really be mindful of the feeling that you're feeling, and then understanding what it's driving you to do will also be really helpful. I love that.
So, what is our next chakra?
Yes. So our next chakra is the navel chakra, the third chakra going up from the bottom. Appropriately named, it's at our navel center or solar plexus, also known as, just right behind the belly button. And the navel chakra represents strength. So people who are imbalanced in their navel chakra in real life may be experiencing a lack of willpower or a lack of motivation. It may even translate as lack of confidence. So think about career, for example. If you're someone who has wanted to ask for a pay raise, if you're someone who's been waiting for a promotion, if you're someone who has a certain life calling, but you just don't feel like you're able to take that next step because you're
Mm.
afraid of change, you may be feeling an imbalance in your navel chakra. A healthy, balanced navel chakra will look like not being fearful to take those chances, or maybe being fearful, but being bigger than the fear itself and
Mm.
taking that change anyway. And it also looks like having strength, motivation, the willpower, and ambition to carry out your life's pursuits.
So, in a lot of ways, we want to increase our motivation. And maybe we realize, oh, well, if I, was working on helping to bring balance in my navel chakra and do some yoga for the navel chakra, maybe I'd have more motivation.
Mhm.
But what if we can't find the motivation to even do the yoga to help us feel that way? I guess the question is, do you have any
Yeah.
recommendations for how to kind of tap into that motivation?
Yeah, that's a great question. For people who maybe struggle with actually getting onto the mat and doing yoga, and that's totally okay. I have days like that too. Something that is really effective for this is mantras and affirmations, positive affirmations. So if you are struggling with finding that motivation or confidence in your life, a really, really great mantra to tell yourself maybe every morning in a ritualistic way is, I can do what I will to do. I can do what I will to do. And by making that a sort of mantra or even a meditation for yourself, by repeating it to yourself over and over, you will eventually be able to give yourself the confidence to do the thing that you're maybe fearful or hesitating of doing. Most of our thoughts are negative thoughts. We all have negative loops that repeat through our
Mm.
head. But by being mindful and changing those thoughts intentionally, ideally in the morning to set the tone for the rest of your day, you can meditate on that even for 5 minutes on that mantra, and then just start to knock out some tasks.
Mhm. And, I do think it just takes a little bit, 1 minute, 2 minutes, maybe
Yes.
one little yoga pose, maybe one little trying something out that you saw in a yoga video sometime. And that little bit will usually become the motivation for me, at least, to realize, oh, wow, I actually feel really good after doing that. I should probably do more. Maybe next time I'll do a longer practice or whatever it might be. So also letting our own judgments on ourselves and our
Mhm.
own kind of being too hard on ourselves, recognizing that and letting that go as well. Because I definitely observe in myself as well as in other people, that a lot of times it's that our own kind of um, thinking that we probably aren't going to be able to do it, or
Mhm.
yeah, but I am never can finish anything, or yeah, but I'm terrible about doing things like that. We just kind of set ourselves up to kind of self-fulfilling prophecy
Mhm.
on not feeling motivated or not feeling the I think it really is a sense of strength that creates the motivation. Like you feel that you're too weak or you feel that you're too tired or whatever it might be. So, in a lot of ways, this practice of letting go of those judgments and becoming more aware of those little judgments that are always flowing through our mind also really helps as well, because you can start to recognize when your own little thoughts or your own little judgments on yourself are actually maybe the thing that's preventing you from making the time. Oh, well, I don't think that I'm able to do stuff like that. So
Yes.
it's actually my own, judgment or my own weird thought about myself that I never even realized that I had,
Mhm.
that's been, preventing me from, you know, being able to kind of unleash all of this energy that's, I think for a lot of people just kind of bottled up inside of them.
Sure.
And then they're just not really able to, either give themselves the permission to
Mhm.
do the thing that will maybe help them feel better. So a lot of the times it is listening to that kind of inner dialogue that is maybe the real thing to help us tap into what's preventing us from finding that inner motivation.
Yes, the mental chatter. And that's why yoga is so great is if you can do it, it's going to get you out of your head and just completely into your body. And really, that's my favorite thing about it is, if I've had a bad day and there's a thought that's repeating in my head over and over and I'm like, just shut up, stop. I can just roll out my mat and, get into my body. And usually by the end of my practice, no matter how long it is, your thoughts begin to change because
Mhm.
you're in this feeling of just the state of feeling very good. And um quieting the mental chatter is just integral to that strong core, literally the
Mhm.
core. And so if you are doing a yoga practice to strengthen your sacral, I'm sorry, your navel chakra, holding a plank, even just holding a plank for 30 seconds to a minute in the morning is going to signal to your nervous system, I'm strong, I'm ready to take on this day. And it's just a minute.
Mhm. Is the emphasis on core work in yoga related to the navel chakra? Like part of the reason we do so much core work is to stimulate the navel chakra.
Yes, absolutely. Exactly. So yoga is all core. Anyone who's done it, our core is constantly activated. And we always want to bring attention back to that core because it helps to balance our navel chakra, which again is because it's only the third chakra, is developed really early on, quite early on in life. So we want to be bringing constant attention back to it because it's one of the formations that's made so early on and shapes us into who we have become today.
I also think about kind of the what's become really the typical posture for a
Mhm.
lot of people, even myself included, as I'm sitting here, I have to keep reminding myself
Yes.
we're always folding in and we're folding forward. And so we get this forward shoulder posture,
Hmm.
we get this like lots of compression through the abdomen. And so I wonder too if just that element of our kind of closed off posture
Hmm.
is kind of suppressing that navel chakra in and of itself, and maybe part of the reason why we struggle with motivation. So something as simple as just trying to open up and sit up
Hmm.
straight and try to not be so closed off can maybe also have a lot of really great benefit for helping that energy to flow better.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up. It's the what we call the tall seat or the yoga spine, right? It has so many benefits for our body, of course, but just as Karina pointed out, rolling the shoulders back and actually engaging your core, so sucking in your core to support your low back is going to help you sit up straight. And there's actually studies that show that sitting up straight increases your confidence. So give it a try at home and make sure you're squeezing your core to protect your back. But with this tall spine, it it encourages us to go out into the world with confidence and achieve that thing that may be a little bit harder for the person who's a little more fearful or less confident.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so you said we were about halfway, right? The
Yes.
third one. So what is the fourth chakra?
Okay, the fourth one is my favorite. It is the Heart Chakra. The Heart Chakra, located in the chest or right where the heart is located, called Anahata, also in Sanskrit. Anahata means unstruck. So unstruck refers to the chakra or the heart that was there before it endured any pain. So think about your heart before your heart was ever broken, maybe when you were a child or a young teen, when you were kind of naive and very childish and playful and having crushes all the time. Um, being balanced in your heart chakra refers to being open, being incredibly childlike in what you fall in love with and who you fall in love with. So it doesn't only refer to people, but it can also refer to being open hearted to different things and energies that come into your life. In many ways, however, it is linked to romantic, platonic, familial relationships. So if you're imbalanced in your heart chakra, you may be someone who experiences codependency or jealousy, maybe in romantic relationships. On the other hand, you may be somebody who is narcissistic or antisocial. And of course, these are the extremes of imbalance, but feeling like maybe you don't deserve to be loved if you're imbalanced in your heart chakra, which of course goes back to being a child and not receiving the love that you had deserved at that point in your life. But the good news is, of course, there are always exercises we can do to come back to our heart, and balancing the heart chakra. Actually, Corrina and I already discussed one of them is something as simple as sitting up straight, rolling your shoulders back, and literally puffing out your chest. So this is my chiropractor approves this posture is to stick and puff out your chest and literally walk out like this. Encourages the blood flow and circulation to the heart, which is one of the easiest ways to bring attention to the heart chakra. But also asking yourself questions like, do I have fear of intimacy? Are my relationships healthy? Do I have trouble setting healthy boundaries in relationships? These are great questions for people who are imbalanced to ask.
Wow. And just to bring up the posture thing again, I would think again that kind of the rounding of the shoulders, so much of us are spending most of our day,
Yes.
most of our waking hours probably in this type of position. So yeah, that heart chakra as well, getting closed off. And I just think about right now, everything is really just kind of at a fever pitch of everyone feeling, really stressed out. Pretty much everyone over the course of this pandemic has had some kind of financial stress, medical or health related stress, or loss related to a friend, a family member. There's just so many really heavy things weighing on our hearts right now. So I just think now more than ever, such an important time to bring our attention to this area. What's an example of a mantra that you might share for somebody who wants to help open the heart chakra?
Yes. So you're so right about that. And one mantra that someone who's struggling with this chakra could repeat is, I openly receive and give. I openly receive and, yes, receive and give love. So I openly receive and give love, is one of the best ways to realign with the heart chakra. And another one even is as simple as, I deserve love. I deserve love. And again, everyone defines love differently. So, whatever love means to you, whatever way in which you feel you're struggling most with love in your life, think of it that way and meditate on it and think about how you can alter the dynamic of your relationship or relationships to bring that love into your life.
So I guess we're moving up.
Yes,
right?
we're moving up. We're officially above the neck here. We've made our way to the throat chakra. The throat chakra also really, really powerful, especially during this time, I think. So the throat chakra represents freedom of expression. So, if you are imbalanced in your throat chakra, you may be someone who has difficulty expressing your true feelings or emotions. You may even have fear of public speaking. So, you may be someone who is not super into speaking in groups or large crowds, which is actually a very common
Super
fear.
common.
Very common. And then on the other hand, if you're imbalanced, you may be someone who talks out of turn or who doesn't really think before they speak. So, someone who is balanced then is somewhere in the middle, someone who doesn't have a fear or difficulty expressing who they are authentically, but who also really thinks mindfully. So, you're someone who communicates intentionally and mindfully. And the third chakra is really, really powerful again during this time because I think it's forcing people to think about who am I and what do I want to contribute to the world? So,
Mhm.
to use your voice for good, no matter what that looks like for you, I think is always important. And rebalancing your throat chakra is going to be very important for that.
Are there any mantras or little recommendations that you might have for that?
Yes, absolutely. So another really great short one for balancing the throat chakra is my voice is powerful. My voice is powerful. That's a really good one to repeat to yourself if you physically, literally have trouble speaking. But it can also even be something like, let's say you're a business owner or someone who's developing like your personal brand on social media and you're having trouble kind of like figuring out your niche. Balancing the throat chakra in that way by repeating that affirmation would be powerful as well.
And then is that why we sometimes have like chanting or ohms in our practice
Yes.
as well?
Yes. So Om, of course, is the vibration of the universe. Is one of the first sounds that humans have heard and both recorded as well. And so you can actually chant Om and chant out the three different letters. So giving attention to each letter. AUM. So and chanting this is actually going to give you confidence in your voice as well. It's a really, really great tool to use at home and exercise. And we call that vibrational meditation. And what you can do is repeat your mantra to yourself and then just take a big breath in and then say and repeat the three different parts of the word because you're repeating those three different syllables, vowels, or consonants, which is going to help increase your confidence literally in your larynx and your throat chakra.
I love it. And I love for anyone who maybe is in a situation where they have to get up and do some public speaking, or I mean, there's so many different instances throughout our lives where I feel we get kind of thrown into these situations. We have to speak to a large group of people. And
Mhm.
I know even for myself, after 10 years of being a YouTuber, I still get super nervous talking to groups of people. So I'm going to definitely try that next
Yes.
time. And so, what is our final chakra?
We have
Oh,
two more,
two.
two more. So we are up to now the third eye chakra. So the third eye chakra is on the forehead in between the eyebrows, what we call the third eye. And the third eye represents intuition. So if you are someone who has a strong third eye chakra, you are super intuitive. You may just have a calling. Maybe you have a professional calling and you follow it and you find a lot of gratitude in that. Or maybe you're just really mindful, a really mindful person, and you do a lot of yoga and you do a lot of meditation. If you are imbalanced in this chakra, then you may just not be aligned with your inner calling. So, for example, a great example of this that I also feel is very common is maybe when you were younger, you pictured yourself doing something that you've always wanted to do. Like you've wanted to be an astronaut since you were little or a ballet dancer. But as you grow up, with societal expectations and peer pressure and all these different things, financial situation,
Mm.
that dream sort of dies. And so you end up not honoring that calling for you and pursuing something else that maybe makes you feel less like you. That would be an example of having an imbalance in your third eye chakra. So to come back to yourself, uh, something that you can actually do that's really, really powerful for all of the chakras, but especially the third eye, is meditation. Um, simple meditation. So, breathing either to an instrumental track or in silence, listening to the sound of your breath, and noticing what thoughts arise specifically when you soften. So, what your
Mm.
body is trying to tell you in those moments are longing to be manifested in real life. So, if you're struggling with listening to your intuition, try and sit in silence, and that's really going to help you connect to your inner child.
What about the things that oftentimes we feel are in the real world, you know, either too big of a hurdle or too big of a challenge, or maybe we feel that there are these physical things outside of us that are preventing us from being able to move towards our intuition? I don't know if there's I don't know
Yeah.
if maybe the perception that there are things outside of us preventing us from seizing our intuition is maybe part of that, or
Yes, absolutely. You're right on the money. I think so the sort of manifestation or the mantra for this chakra is I am bigger than my limiting beliefs. So I
Mm.
am bigger than my limiting beliefs. And again, really can be applied to any chakra, but this one in particular, because as you said, Karina, we have there's so many obstacles and forces that stop us or try and stop us from
Mhm.
being our innermost self. But when we can reframe the way that we think of ourselves and think of ourselves as something bigger than everything that's being thrown at us, we can just block all of that out and think of it as almost white noise,
Mhm.
and be so connected to our purpose that we just begin to channel our intuition and keep going on that path until we reach what we call in the yoga world nirvana, but just a pure state of bliss or
Mhm.
uninterrupted, complete happiness and fulfillment.
Mhm. And kind of getting back to that idea that we talked about a little earlier, just feeling content with what you have and not looking outside of yourself for
Yes.
either, oh, well, I would feel better if I had this, or I'd feel better if I had that. And really being able to kind of be without
Mhm.
any of those things and recognizing that you still have that kind of inner, I don't know, wellspring of contentment and joy that really just comes when we aren't finding our joy in the things outside of us,
Mhm.
and we're able to find that within us and realize that it's an illusion in the first place, that we should need to look outside of ourselves for those things.
Yes, you're right. And I think what you call the wellspring, yeah, I like to think of it as a guide almost. It's like we all have an inner guide. Some of us have a stronger one than others, but we all have it. None of us don't have it. And think of it this way: the more that you can listen to your intuition, so the more that you strengthen your third eye chakra, the less of the need you feel for those things, to
Mhm.
grab for those things, whatever it is, social media followers, fancy car, whatever it is. The more that you follow that inner guide, the less you will be reaching for those things. So it really is a
Mm.
habit to develop, but once you do develop it, it is it's incredibly gratifying.
It sounds like it.
Yes.
And so now we're at the last
Yes.
chakra.
Now we are at the final chakra, the crown chakra. So the crown chakra is located at the very top of our head, right in the center. And the crown chakra represents total body alignment, but specifically, it represents sort of the chakra above ourselves because it's literally at the very top. It represents everything that's happening in the brain. So think about the dreamscape, our dreams, our imagination, our visions. The crown chakra represents being very imaginative, literally, or even really creative. So if you're imbalanced in your crown chakra, you may have a certain vision or imagination that is really special to you, but you are unsure or unaware of how to manifest it. It may be super, super in your subconscious. So you may actually dream about it. For people who, this is also very common, tend to dream about one specific thing or one specific experience over and over again. You may have an imbalance in your crown chakra because your body is telling you to listen to that dream.
Mhm.
Um, People who are balanced in their crown chakra are people who are maybe artists, creators, visionaries, leaders, world leaders. They're people who are healthily and easily able to take their dreams and turn them into physical manifestations, usually to express some sort of thinking, feeling, or to just make the world a better place. Another way that you may be imbalanced in the crown chakra, which of course also is linked to materialism, is having an obsession. So if you have an imbalance, you may be obsessed with looking a certain way or feeling a certain way or having a certain thing. But by bringing that balance back to the crown chakra, we're able to healthily have dreams and think about that thing, but not be so fixated on it that it completely takes over our entire existence. So we're able to separate ourselves from the obsession or the thought or the dream.
Wow. That's so interesting that if you're having a recurring dream, which I think a lot of us do,
Yeah.
that could actually be something you want to pay a little bit more attention to
Mhm.
rather than just, I don't know. I think a lot of people just kind of write off their dreams. And a lot of times the dreams, maybe they don't make sense or it's
Yeah.
just totally random. Sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I experienced this thing yesterday. So maybe that kind of explains this weird way that my mind was thinking about it.
Mhm.
But to also maybe listen to your dreams and maybe see if there's something there that your intuition is trying to communicate to you.
Mhm.
And then during the day, during your wakeful hours, there's so much mental chatter and there's so much coming in from the outside world. Like
Yes.
even our own internal mental chatter aside, all of just the informational input coming in from the world around us is really overwhelming. And I would say increasingly overwhelming with every new little device that comes out,
Yes.
So it's this kind of thing that we're maybe just at the brink, we're at the precipice right now of, I remember when having a cell phone that you left your house with was really weird. I wasn't called a cell phone at that. I think we called it a car phone. It was like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, a phone that you would have in your car. And then it became like this phone that you have on your hip. And then it's just kind of spiraled out from there because now we
Mm.
have so many devices, so many things, plus all of the information just coming in from our, IRL real life.
Yeah.
It becomes really overwhelming and it becomes really easy to become kind of inundated or just feeling that it's more than we can handle or more than
Mhm.
we can take in. And I just think all of that sort of dulls the volume of that internal voice or that intuition. And so the more that we become kind of distracted with all of these other things, it becomes more and more difficult to tap into that voice.
100%. Yes. Karina's right. And I think, if you're struggling with balance of a crown chakra or struggling to listen to your inner messages, something that would be really helpful for you is to literally unplug. Whether it's for an extended period of time. I have friends who will take like a month off of social media just to regain clarity,
Mhm.
and find themselves again. And I think that's really powerful. Or even just something as simple as limiting like your day-to-day screen time. Something I've been trying to do lately, at least, is looking at my phone and monitoring how many hours I spend on this platform and this platform. Because at the end of the day, you're right, those being on those platforms affects what we think about. So
Mhm.
by being closer and closer to our dreams, we're able to more easily manifest them, and technology brings us further away from them. So a great exercise for someone struggling with balancing, of course, their crown chakra is number one, actually unplugging, taking away time from the technology. But two, even just keeping a
Mm.
diary or journal of your thoughts, noticing your inner dialogue, and keeping a dream diary as well could also be really, really helpful to possibly notice any patterns.
Mhm. And I love the physical aspect of writing.
Oh,
I
yes.
mean, I've spent so much time now doing this over the course of my
Yeah.
life, but it feels really nice when you actually just feel the pen and paper, feel the way that the different pen or the different pencil or even like the .5 pencil lead versus the .7 feels so different on the page. But to me, all of those little things and the physical experience of writing I really, really like. And I love that idea of whether it's like stream of consciousness journaling, where it's just kind of like, I'm not even going to think, I'm just going to write and just
Mhm.
let everything flow out. And sometimes you'll be really amazed by, well, I didn't even realize I was thinking that. And then you
Yes.
like see it on the page later and you're like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
But that just is kind of to me like one example of like maybe like feeling that little intuition come through, or starting to notice how you can kind of, turn down the volume of all of those other things, and you start to hear your own inner thoughts more clearly. And sometimes you're really amazed by what you discover when you listen.
Yes, exactly. And you don't have to be a writer to keep a diary. I always say it's like yoga. Anyone can keep a diary. And to give power to your thoughts is it's really powerful to understand, hey, what I'm feeding to myself, what I'm saying to myself matters. Let me actually get it down on paper is really powerful. And then to be able to have it all in one place and look back at
Mhm.
your thoughts so that you can see, am I making progress? Am I thinking about different things now? Is also really going to help you just be connected to your imagination.
Definitely. Well, Sheena, thank you so much for sharing all of this. Do you have any, I guess, closing thoughts on the chakra system or closing mantras that you want to share with us?
No, I don't. I'm so happy to explain them. And, I would just say that I have a chakra series
Yes.
with Psyche Truth that is already being released. So make sure you guys check out my videos. And we do pay attention to the postures. And I also give you guys affirmations in those videos as well. So,
Yes, I
yeah.
am so excited for that series. And I love, yes, how you kind of brought all of those aspects together. So you have the mantra for them, you have the poses, as well as working with some of the pranayama and breathing as well to really help them. Um, and this kind of concept of bringing balance to the chakras, so
Mhm.
you're not going to just look at one, but understanding that this like flow of energy all relies on the connectedness between all of them. So you really created this really beautiful well-rounded program where each of the chakras you kind of go through systematically, but then collectively over the course of all of the videos, just helping to bring balance to the entire system.
Yes. Thank you, Karina. That was my intention. And I hope you guys get those benefits.
Definitely. We will have that for you guys coming out very soon. It may already be up by the time we put this out. We will definitely include that link for you. If you would like to join the entire program right away, you can join Yoga Plus. So download Yoga Plus app, iPhone, Android, Apple TV. You can start your free 2-week trial. You can even do the whole chakra series during your free 2-week trial. So I hope you guys will check it out. If you've enjoyed this conversation, I definitely encourage you to join Sheena for her yoga videos as well. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope that you will leave your comments or video requests, questions down below so that we can get to them in our next podcast. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Join us for 14 and 30-day programs, hour-long classes, and much more on our yoga app, Yoga Plus by Psyche Truth. It's free to download and features a variety of wellness content, including yoga, fitness, Pilates, guided meditations, and interviews with dozens of wellness experts.